Spider-Man villains in the MCU? Who's left? We've already been through a ton of them, and if we have more Spider-Man properties, what other villains will come along? Let's take a look at some of the possibilities up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And in this video, we're going to talk about Spider-Man villains we could see in the MCU. Before we get started, though, please like, comment, subscribe, share, do whatever you want. We really appreciate it. It helps the metrics of the channel. I still owe a 500 subscriber giveaway. I'm going to announce that when I'm giving that away real soon. And we're getting close to 3,000. We're in the 2,800s. We're going to have a 3,000 subscriber giveaway. I promise you that. I've just been so busy selling on Whatnot that I have just trying to move books out of my basement. In addition, follow us on Instagram at Bronzeville_comics. Whatnot, we do sales Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern time on Bronzeville_comics. Everything pretty much starts starting bids at $3 on the Whatnot sales. So give us a follow, bookmark the shows, and I usually do previews on Instagram of the books that are coming up in the next show. Also, if you have not yet signed up for Whatnot and you wish to, you can use the link in the description and get $10 off your first purchase. It doesn't have to be with me. Also in the description below is a link to my eBay store. So I want to talk about Spider-Man villains we could see in the MCU, and we've already seen so many of them. By including the villains from the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield universes into No Way Home, we already have seen so many of the major Spider-Man villains in the MCU. We've obviously seen the 5 there. Venom had a cameo appearance in the post-credit sequence. We've seen Mysterio. We've seen the Vulture. And there are other villains. Kingpin is a Spider-Man villain. He's appeared elsewhere. The Sonyverse has Morbius. And they have Kraven coming. The Chameleon is coming in that movie. And then there's the potential for Madam Web and Black Cat and all these others. So I'm going to focus on the characters that we don't have any word of yet becoming incorporated, because they do have to find some Spider-Man villains for Spider-Man to fight if they're going to do more movies. So some of these are a little more esoteric. Some are maybe even a little bit silly. But let's get started, and we'll look at like the price points of the books. So we're going to go to number 10 on the list. Number 10 on my list is Will of the Wisp, who had his first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 167. This is a character who had an accident with an electromagnetic field. He can change his body's density. He was rather frequently used as a Spider-Man villain in the 1970s and into the 80s. And his books are pretty cheap to get. The last sale of a 9.8 was $291. You could probably get a 9.4, maybe even a 9.6 for $100, and you get high-grade raws probably in the $20 range. It is a visually interesting character, and this might even be someone that we could see in a freshman year animated series. They're going to have to populate that with villains as well. And remember, whoever appears as Spider-Man villain, their books are going to go bananas, especially if there's been not a lot of spec on them previously. Number 10 on the list, we're going to go just 5 issues later. First appearance in Amazing Spider-Man 172, Rocket Racer, who kind of souped up a skateboard and battled Spider-Man. His books are a little more expensive than Will of the Wisp. The 9.8 is about a $600 book. You can still get a 9.6 for about $100, and the raws are more in the $20 to $30 range. So he was a kid from Brooklyn who got involved in crime and fought Spider-Man, used a skateboard, was kind of very much a character of his era, but kind of visually appealing. He is African-American, so that organically he was that in the comics, and there weren't many African-American characters in the comics in the 1970s. He is a little bit of an interesting character. Number 8 on my list is the Tarantula, who made his first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man 134. Anton Miguel Rodriguez has those stingers on his shoes. I don't know how he walks around, to be honest with you. That seems like it would be really awkward. But he was a pretty well vetted character. He's actually the villain for Spectacular Spider-Man #1 and was on the cover of that book, which is a fairly valuable book because it is a first Spider-Man book. The Tarantula book in a 9.0 is about a $400 book, and in a 7.0, it's about $175. Raw books are about $100. The thing is with this book, it's a double key because the Tarantula shares this with the Punisher. The Punisher makes a cameo appearance. It's his second appearance at the end of this book, and then he has another full appearance, including a second cover appearance in 135. We have not yet seen the Punisher in the MCU, but it would be interesting to see John Bernthal's Punisher go up against Spider-Man at some point. But I'm sticking with number 8 with Tarantula. Pricey book. And it is, one of the earlier books on this list until we get higher on the list. Number 7 is Man-Wolf, who premiered in Amazing Spider-Man 124. It's John Jameson, the son of publisher J. Jonah Jameson, and it kind of links a couple of things. J. Jonah Jameson is established as a foil for Spider-Man in the last movie and the post-credit sequence right before that. J.K. Simmons, obviously a great Academy Award-winning actor in that part. It'd be interesting to have a son who was an astronaut, went into space, developed like these werewolf powers. And then we also have the introduction of the horror aspect of the Marvel Universe that we're going to see in Werewolf by Night, the Halloween special. So we could cross the Spider-Man stuff over with the horror stuff. That would be kind of interesting. His first appearance in a 9.2 recently sold for $960 and 8.0 for $335. It is a pricey book. And actually, John Jameson himself does appear first in Amazing Spider-Man #1. Raw book is also about $100. So that is a pricey book. He did have his own solo series in Creatures on the Loose, issues 30 to 37. And it's been a character that's been around quite a bit. Number 6 on the list, the Puma, who first premiered in Amazing Spider-Man 256 while Spider-Man was wearing the black suit. He's a Native American character, Thomas Fireheart, and that book in a 9.8 recently sold for $334. The 9.4 is about a $100 book, and you can probably get a raw copy probably in the $40 to $50 range. Not a lot of native characters. There are people speculating on characters like Red Wolf and Thunderbird because that is an area of inclusivity that would make natural sense for Marvel to incorporate. Potentially the Puma could fit that bill. Number 5 on the list is Mr. Negative. This is a more recent character whose first appearance was in a Free Comic Book Day book in 2007. Free Comic Book Day, Amazing Spider-Man #1. 9.8s of that book go for $300 and Raws about $30. So you could maybe find some high-grade Raws, but in 2007, people weren't collecting Free Comic Book Day books like they do now. Now everybody hoards them and holds on to them, and you got a ton of them in high grade. Was not true just a few years ago. And this is a character, an Asian character who isn't really aware of his powers, and when he does change, his body becomes a negative image of what it was. That could be very visually appealing, much like Spot in the Spider-Verse film. So could be something that they look towards. Number 4 on my list is Tombstone, whose first appearance in 1988 was in Web of Spider-Man number 36. 9.8s are about $450, but 9.6 is only about $100, and you can probably get a raw copy for about $20. And it makes sense with Kingpin being involved in the MCU that we could see Tombstone. He has worked for Kingpin before. We could see him kind of as more of a minor character, not the major foil in a Spider-Man property. But if we ever see Spider-Man going against Kingpin, I wouldn't be surprised if Tombstone is included. Now we're going to go back to the Silver Age for number 3 on my list. We kind of have seen this character. He's been referred to, but we haven't truly seen him in the MCU, and that is the Rhino. We did see a version of the Rhino played by Paul Giamatti at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2. And there was kind of a joke, essentially, in the No Way Home movie where Andrew Garfield said, yeah, I once fought a guy in a rhino suit. Very popular character. Obviously, his book from the Silver Age is very expensive. A 7.0 is about a $1,000 book. A 5.0 about a $500 book. So if you want that book, you're going to have to pay good money for it in any sort of decent condition. I would think that this is a potential. We haven't seen him in the MCU, so in terms of the Spider-Man classic villains, this is one that they could include. Number 2 on my list is Hobgoblin, who made his first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man 238, which it's about a $400 book in the 8.0 to 9.0 range. It is a little more difficult book because it did have, to find in high grade, because it did have some tattoos, temporary tattoos inserted in a cardboard insert in the book, which if they're missing, it comes back as a green qualified label. And it's also a more difficult book to press because you have that extra layer that you have to press in order to get the natural crease that's going to be formed by that cardboard strip that's in the book. Anyway, Hobgoblin has taken on numerous identities over the years, one of which is Ned Leeds. And there's a lot of speculation that Jacob Batalon could possibly be Hobgoblin in the future, perhaps in a brainwash way, now that he doesn't know who Peter is. And also in No Way Home, when Tobey Maguire was saying, basically, I was betrayed by my best friend. Ned's like, I would never betray you. Little foreshadowing there, perhaps. Batalon is a popular actor in the MCU. He actually did appear in Endgame at the end. It was him, not MJ, that we saw, welcoming Peter back to school after they had both been blipped. A lot of talk leading up to No Way Home of how Batalon had gotten in better shape, potentially for a more heroic role. We'll see where that leads, but he is a fan favorite. A lot different than the Ned Leeds character in the comic books, but a beloved character in the MCU. Now I'm going to go to number 1 on my list, and this is a character we have kind of seen him in the MCU, but not in his villain identity, and that is the Scorpion. Now we have seen Mac Gargan himself, but not as the Scorpion. Mac Gargan was a private investigator who first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 19, and then he was hired by J. Jonah Jameson to discover the identity of Spider-Man. And then J. Jonah Jameson kind of used him as a test subject and created this Scorpion costume for him, which he became a part of. And he became a supervillain, the Scorpion, in Amazing Spider-Man number 20. That is a pricey book. That in a 5.0 is about a $1,000 book. You move up to a 7.0, and you're talking several thousands of dollars. Issue number 19 is a little cheaper. 7.0 is about a $500 book. But issue 20 is really the book to get for Scorpion. Michael Mando did play him in Spider-Man Homecoming, and we did see him in that post-credit scene basically saying to the Vulture, let's take care of Spider-Man. Let's put something together. A lot of Sinister Six wheels were turning back then. And that's kind of been pushed off to the side. Possibility we'll see Scorpion again. I think of the classic Spider-Man villains, he's like the only one left. He and Rhino from the Ditko, even from the early Ramita stuff. All the other characters we've seen at some form or another, and they've all been incorporated into the MCU. And one character who is a Spider-Man villain, wasn't originally one, that I did not include in here because I don't think we're ever going to see him, is Mephisto. Didn't include him. Didn't include Black Cat or Silver Sable or some of the other female characters. Seems like Sony is working on that angle. The Vulture is now over in the Sonyverse, God help him. And MCU, Kevin Feige is going to have to come to some of these deals with Sony in order to be able to use these characters. I think a lot of fans would enjoy seeing an MCU version of Morbius, even if it is played by Jared Leto. how are they going to go with the multiverse angle? That remains to be seen. It could all build towards Secret Wars, and we'll see kind of how Spider-Man deals with that. And there is the hope that potentially Sony will just say to Disney, just make our movies, we'll take our cut of the money, and you handle the creative side of it, because they have been an absolute mess. And we saw, like, when a fairly minor character, like even Madam Web. Madam Web has never been a huge character, but since they announced the movie, her books have skyrocketed. We saw that with El Muerto, who had like one nondescript appearance, and then all of a sudden his books went through the roof. So there's a lot of FOMO surrounding Spider-Man villains. Let me know what you think of the list. Let me know who you would add to it. There are a lot of potential characters. I'm a little more well-versed in more of the Silver and Bronze Age characters than some of the modern ones, but let me know what you think. There are a lot of potential characters out there that they could use. They have used most of the classic ones. So, we kind of still have the Shocker and the Prowler and Man Mountain Marco. The Enforcers, we'll see what we get out of that. If we have any of those characters come into the MCU. But in the meantime, you can check out a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.